Alright, this is sort of a follow-up on an event that we tried to recently do, and the event got rained out, and during the load-out process of it, you'll probably notice a lot of this stuff just got tossed in here. But when items are wet, you do not want to repackage those things into things that could be dry. Now, this is the top of the tent. This was obviously extremely wet. We didn't want to package it into the tent holder because we just have to pull everything back out and dry it out. And also, if you pack stuff wet and then forget about it, it could mold and mildew. And stuff like that does not look very well on tarps and vinyl coverings and stuff like that. And then some of the other things that you probably saw that we were loading individually is something like this. This is a basic power strip PDU. And normally this is inside of a case, but this was wet. And we do not want to put wet items into packaging where there are dry items. So anything that's wet just gets out in the open, gets tossed in the van, and then it's set to dry out. And this has actually probably been sitting like this for 2 days. Maybe more like a day and a half to ensure that it gets completely dried out. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start pulling this stuff out of here. We're going to make sure stuff is dry. Anything that's electric, assuming that's all dry, we're going to plug it in, make sure everything works. We got to check in the speakers. Even though nothing was used, a lot of the stuff that you see here was wet and got pretty wet. So alright, so this canopy, I can still tell here, it's a little bit wet. So we may have to set up the tent, let it dry out. The tarps as well, I can still tell they are a little bit wet. So a lot of the stuff like this we're just going to lay it out, let it dry out. Obviously stuff like our support lumber and stuff like that, it doesn't matter if it's wet or not. We'll just, as long as it stays out of the way, really. These are the sides to the tent. All right. A lot of stuff that was underneath everything. Obviously, the fan could not get airflow across it. So these tarps over here are still fairly wet. All right, and a good protocol to follow. And just like I mentioned in the first video, was keeping stuff upside down. I intentionally laid this upside down so that anything that's wet, I think you can see it's still wet on here. This came from the tarps. That nothing's going to get inside of the snake. So if you have to end up putting stuff into your truck or wherever it is, make sure stuff is facing down just to protect it. Alright, snake looks good. Just wiped it down, actually the back of it, to get rid of the water. The pigtails look good. We were able to get these in the pigtail bag here before a lot of the heavy stuff came down, so these look good. Alright, the sandbags got drenched, but these are waterproof. These weigh about 50 pounds with dry weight in them, but if this was not waterproof, this would have weighed a lot more. So spend the extra money, get some waterproof sandbags. Alright, if you're ever in this kind of situation with your speakers, this is a good example here. If you've got the speakers that have the inputs like this on top, when you put the speakers in a van or truck or whatever, make sure these are face down. That way it's protected in case any water should come down. Okay, so some of you may be wondering, why keep this side here, the input connection, facing down? And some of you may ask, well, what if I've got water sitting at the bottom? I don't know if I want to have my speaker sitting in water. Well, I'll say this. If you've got, I'm looking at this right here, if you have, let's say, a half an inch or maybe 3/4 of an inch of water, standing water, in your vehicle, you have other problems that need to be addressed. And probably nothing you do is going to help in trying to keep water out. You should not be having standing water anywhere where you're storing gear. So try to keep this side face down. Alright, the mic case was never opened, but we're going to open up anyway, just to make sure that we don't see anything moisture-wise. So what we're going to do, we're just going to swap out our moisture packs and get ready for the next show. Alright, this is the top of the tent. It hasn't been outside too long, but it is dry. And what really helps with keeping stuff like this dry is we'll use something like, this is not a brand placement by any means, but we'll use something like Scotch Guard. We'll set up the tent, put the top on, then we'll spray the whole top down with something like Scotch Guard. And then when it does get wet, the water really does just roll off. So when I took it outside, we just had to shake it a few times, and then we just set it out. I said it's probably been less than maybe 30 minutes outside, but it is completely dry now. Unfortunately, the tarps aren't so easy to get dry. Alright, so we got to go through and make sure that the microphone stands, the ones that were out, are dried off. So what we did was we would take the microphone stands, just put them all into a bag, we'd zip it up. We did not put them in their own slot area, but anything that's wet we do want to dry off. Now this is a little bit different, putting something wet into a dry area, simply because the other stands that are in here, the ones that were not used, are all covered. So the probability of them getting any kind of moisture or water on them at all is pretty low. And also having a bunch of microphone stands loose in a cargo van with a bunch of other things that are loose, the stands could actually get damaged or bent. So we try to keep everything together. So we're going to go through and just make sure these are okay. This whole thing could have been a lot worse than what it was. Meaning with all the water over the equipment, all over inside of the van, this could have been a lot worse. Many thanks to the Groovionators for their help in getting all this equipment loaded. This case was never opened either, but looks really good. No feel of any moisture, but it's always good to throw in a few of these packets. Alright, this rack was opened up during the rain, but it was under the tent, so I'm pretty confident we're going to be okay here. Let's Take a look here. Make sure everything's gonna work out okay. Alright. Let's try the UPS. The drive rack stuff's coming up, looks good. Yeah, I think we're fine. Alright, nice and dry in here. This looks good. XLRs, we're temporarily using it for the speaker cables. There wasn't that many. I did want to bring a 300-pound box full of other cables just for these. This looks good. Alright, these the DSRs, they were never used. They were never turned on, but they did have quite a bit of water on them. Just on the surface, the fan that I had running here for the past day and a half looks like it's dried a lot of the stuff out. I didn't see anything in the front. And yeah. So anyway, we're just going to turn them on. We're going to plug a mic directly into the back of the speaker. We don't need a console for this. We're going to set our switch over here to mic, which will compensate for the difference here. So
check 1 2 2 2 2. Two, 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 two. Let's check. Check 1 2.
Just make sure the horn, everything's fine.
Check 1 2 2 2 2 1 2.
Sounds good. I think we're okay here. Alright, so these cabinets have been rained on before during shows. They've done exceptionally well. I test them every time after a show. Yeah, they've done very well even being rained on. Alright, let's give the other one a try. Alright, looks normal.
Check 1 2 2 2 2. Test. Check.
All right. If you can hear that, I got some low frequency feedback. And how can we stop that? All right, test. We'll hit the high pass filter, everything's fine.
Check 1 2 2 2 2.
All right. This one looks good. All right, so this was out open when the rain started, and we got a little bit of some rain here on the back. Not actual rain, just a lot of sprinkling that went on with it. It wasn't bad by any means. Anyway, I wiped it down when the rain was going on, but Still a good idea. We're going to turn it on, just check a few things with it. All right, this looks good. I think the moisture packets in it probably helped. All right, I'm pretty confident that there's really no issues with this. All right, so for this particular board, I think I'm just going to leave it as is. In other words, I'm going to leave this stuff where it is. We're going to be mixing for the Groovinators on a upcoming show here very shortly, and anyway, if something needs to change, that's fine. I'll just tape over this, and we'll probably use another scene on here. But yeah, I'm going to leave all this stuff here just as it is, as I had originally set up for them. So I think we're going to be okay with this. Alright, we're going to double check the monitor speakers, make sure everything's okay. So we'll get our Mackie board set up for this. Test, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. 2, 1, 2, 2, 1. I don't hear any rattling, I don't hear anything like that going on. The horn and the woofer are good. All right, let's go to the next one. Test 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2. Check 1, 2. All right, that's looking good. Test 1, 2. 2, 2, 2, 2. Check 1, 2, 2, 1, 2. All right, looks good. We can put those up for the next time. All right, something I did notice when I was moving the speakers around, testing them. When I got done, I started packing the speakers on top of each other. This one was making a lot of racket, physical racket as I was moving it around. When I opened it up, the screws that they had holding the horn in were making their way out. So I'm not too sure what's going on. So for right now, I am putting some longer screws in here to I'm putting some longer screws in here to keep the horn in place. So this is something I'll have to take a look at more in depth when I have some time. But for right now, this will work perfect keeping the horn in because the screws aren't coming out or anything. All right, well, that's about it for the check-in that we do. And normally it takes about maybe 2 hours to check in from doing a show, an indoor show. But doing outdoor shows, especially when rain has been involved, it takes quite a bit longer. So this whole process, this whole check-in process has taken about 5.5 hours to do. And I said all shows that we do that are outdoors, if there's rain, this is just how long it takes to do. We want to make sure that nothing is wet when we put it away because we don't want any mold or mildew. We want to make sure that everything can turn on and operate and function like it's supposed to. All right, well, that's about it, and thanks for watching.